time, there was a boy who read. He read lots of books. He was about 12, 13. Now, there's a teacher with a question that he asked himself again and again and again. And the question always comes when he has to assign some reading of authors that are considered classics. And the names are Racine, Voltaire, Sartre, and so on and so forth. He believes he has an answer for that. But they're his answers. And the question would be, is if you have your own answers about these things, why do you read classics? And in fact, another question that comes with it is if you actually read them at all, or if you go to Sparks Notes and you read it in a day. And that's what I want to know. What's the truth behind this thing? And the truth is that many, many people, they fake read. They say, I read it, but they forget just a little detail to mention that they actually seen the movie, or they read the abridged version, or even the comic book. But the question of academic honesty is not my question right now. The question is, why read classics? Why read the source? And I firmly believe there's not one answer for that. There's several ones, and that's what I'm going to try to tackle. In my particular history, I had very tough teachers, very French kind of education, and the teachers mandated certain readings, and we read them. And also, my dad, and that's more of my dad, he gave me a series of books that were called Clássicos para a Juventude, and in the whole version, it was classics for the youth. And they were there. So my dad told me, okay, that's for your spare time. That's what you do. And in fact, he forced me to do that. And also, I had two other people, two adults, that loved reading. So I started reading them. Essentially, that's what it was. When I was in college, I continued to read it. But again, I was supposed to. The only thing at this time, there were other books, like much shorter ones. They're called profiles of a work, and they had them for every single classic. And the most amazing thing, at everything that I possibly would want was there. They have the plots and the summary. They have the character analysis. They have the big themes and the small ones. They have all the questions that my teacher could possibly do, and they have the answers to. And that's the trick. And you're probably asking yourself, did I read them? Of course I did. But I also read the other ones, what I consider the real one, the classics. A bunch of my friends, and this was a literature major, they didn't, because they knew that they could get by with those. And actually, you are probably aware that you can. You don't really need to read the books to do the assignments. That's not the question. So the question would be, why would you read those books? And my question is, or my answer to that, and not only mine, there's a bunch of research that question this problem, is because you want to have your own opinions, and you don't want to have second-hand ones. Because if I don't read the book, I would not know what I really think about. I'm going to just repeat what, let's say, Sophia there talked about, because she read it there. In fact, during my college years, I found out that I didn't necessarily agree with many of the stuff that was said about the stories. Very often, I didn't even agree with the merit of certain books. I really questioned that why certain books were elected classics. And that was a question that kept coming back. I'm full of questions, essentially. But during this period, I found out that, and that's several of these books, they talked to me. Essentially, what they did is they were back there in my mind. Okay? Yeah, the idea is that I was becoming psychotic, but not just yet, or not completely. What really happened is that I realized that what I considered the classics they actually reflected exactly what my experiences were, to a certain extent. They reverberate questions that I ponder upon, consciously or not. As a matter of fact, they shed a light into inner questions that I had, and also like they show the feelings and the thinking that somehow I didn't have lived yet. Like people live and thought and, I don't know, felt not exactly how I did, but it seemed kind of legit in my point. So, in short, I read because they are always, and that's the big, beautiful thing about classic books, is they're always full of human experiences. These are a couple of my favorite books, actually, ever, that I read throughout my life. So, a little later in my academic life, I started to realize that I kept going back to always the same books. Okay? I was hunted by them, if you wish. And so they had the same images and the same experience that appeared again and again and again. So what happened in my papers when I started writing, what I actually did was refer to those books, to those readings. And my intellectual life was completely based upon them. Those guys. There's a half a dozen of them, if you want. I started to quote all over the place, and I did learn how to quote, which was good. It's a good habit, actually. And I refer to them as my classics. They're mine. I completely embrace them. And with each reading that I would do that was new, from a book that was not necessarily related to them, I would somehow find a way of connecting to those that I read and that I loved. The reason why I kept going back to these books is because literally, and I believe so, classics imprint themselves in our imagination. They're there. They stick. They became part of my way of perceiving the world completely. These books not only became part of my student life, like intellectual, if you want, but my mind that was all over the place, telling you, almost psychotic. What happened is that I started seeing characters that I knew from the books and knew very well in real life. So I started my world was completely changed through the lenses of those books, or few books that I loved. And then the example classic is like this person, that guy there, very innocent, believed in everything that his teacher says, followed every single step. Oh, it's Candide by Voltaire. Okay? I remember seeing this old lady, old, like let's say 45, which is not old, you know that. I know that. That fell madly in love with this guy that say was 20. Okay? That woman was fed. Okay, by Racine. My point was, does art imitate life, or is it the contrary? Okay, I would rather say that's the contrary, for sure. Is life that imitates art. And what I consider art, I always mention it, is with a capital A. There is, for me, an art. And today I'm talking about literature. So literature. As an art, literature for me has a capital L, which means classic literature. I believe in that. And why is that? Because they hide layers of memories, collective ones, if you believe in Jung, that disguise themselves as our own memories. And this goes also with another idea that life is a simulacrum. What's a simulacrum? Is life, our life, reflect something else. Okay, that's called the essence, if you believe in God. Some people would say associated to God. And because there is an essence, for some, there are things that you can see, but sometimes not really understand. The classics, for me, allow a glimpse to this essence. They also introduce us to representations of the universe that we can't really foresee, but they're there. What I'm trying to say is that there is more to certain texts, not all of them at all, that we can see dependent on what time you've read it, what your age is, or not. You won't see it then. Our intellect often only allow us to grasp what we've experienced, although we can sense there's a little bit more in it. Therefore, when we read classics, we envision what our knowledge can't really understand. In addition, our lives and experience unfold. As our life and experience unfold, we start to perceive new meanings and realities that were already present in classics that we couldn't recognize simply for lack of experience. When we revisit a classic, or we see it again, or we read it if you want, although it's the same book, it reveals itself in a different manner. Therefore, and that's what is that, a classic book is the one that must be reread because it's always new and updated. The classics don't age. Okay? A classic figure from an actress is still the same, it's still gorgeous. They regain youth when looked through both fresh eyes like yours or tired ones like mine. They can never be exhausted. There are texts that I read in my youth that continue to amaze me. Reading Proust in college at 18, and then I read it again when I was 32. It was not the same book whatsoever. But myself, I wasn't the same person. And I really look forward, that's one of my retirement projects, to read the whole 11 volumes and see how I'm going to feel about it. The problem is that I really don't know if I can retire. I'm a teacher. For my amusement, I witness dialogues in between words separated both in time and in culture. Through me and in me, this text, they were able to talk. And this itinerary was amazing. It was quite an adventure for me. It was all in him. Okay, and it was exactly the same as an image that I like a lot, that's Ulysses going back home to Italy. The Odyssey, one of my favorite books in history. It's a classic that persists. It's there. It's been there. They have been there for immemorial times. We don't even know when the Odyssey actually was written. And what they do is they're a monument to our achievements, human ones. They're ingrained in our minds, like the pyramids in Egypt or Angkor Wat in Cambodia. And they continue to attract us. They must be visited because they tell about our aspirations, our taste, ourselves. They help build what is our sensitivity. Why do millions of people go traveling to see these places? And the question would be, do you go in such journeys? That's the invitation that literature does for you, or classic literature. And my classics are not Mr. Self's classics, or my wife's classics. She's kind of Bronte and Pride and Prejudice and this kind of stuff. So, my story made me sail through the books and I love the imagery, and that are now mine. I consider these my books. My classics, amongst other things, they made my identity. I am these books, too. So, I leave you with two pieces of advice, or actually, I leave you with two things. One is a piece of advice, the other one is an invitation. The advice comes from Flaubert, and it's from the 19th century, and this guy was quite an interesting man. He said, do not read as children do, and it's arguable there, to amuse yourself, or like ambitious, for the purpose of instruction. No, read in order to live. The second invitation is my own, with a little accent of Borges, who is one of my favorite authors. Make your own classic choices in this sinuous spreading that encompasses the past and the future, and in some way involves the stars. It's a work from a Brazilian artist, actually, that he did this. 250,000 books that he made a living. I think life is much more like that regarding to books. Thank you very much. Let's go have a break.